Let's talk about art journaling with the moon for the week of July 17th to the 23rd. So, this is for anyone who likes to art journal with the moon alongside me, especially highly sensitive creators or intuitives who tend to get bogged down by anxiety or overwhelm or self sabotaging behaviors. It's really helpful to work with the energy of the moon in your art journal to release emotions, tend to your soul, and practice magic. This is also a helpful video for anyone who just wants to listen to or hear about what's going on with the moon in terms of their birth chart, including and specifically wherever the lunar energy is affecting them according to their rising sign. So you might want to tune into that part of the video. In this particular week, I'm going to talk about that new moon in Cancer energy that's happening. The new moon is happening in Mountain Time, anyways, on Monday, July 17th. So the week kicks off with that energy, and that energy stays with us for 2 weeks as the moon's building towards that full moon in Aquarius. Um, the focus that I've been centered on with this new moon is working with it to heal my broken heart, um, and work with that energy of Great Mother because the sign of Cancer and the moon are both really great symbols and hold that energy of Great Mother archetype. So it's a good time to kind of go to those tender places because that Cancer energy also likes to go to the tender, vulnerable places. So, any places in your life where you feel like you've maybe experienced a loss or you're just holding memories from a time in your life that was really difficult. We're actually going to focus on an area of your life that is specifically centered on where Cancer is in your birth chart, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can just think about as you're working with the energy of this new moon, which I'll talk a little bit later in the video in more detail. But if you're wanting to work with that energy of the new moon in your art journal, just think about a time where you did have a broken heart, or if you're going through it right now, going through tremendous grief or loss, and just inviting that energy of the Great Mother or your own internal mother, and thinking about what kind of nourishing or nurturing that you need in order to move through or process some of those emotions or even just to help tend to your tender heart. So we'll be focusing on that this week in this video as well, but also in my creative moon cycle guide. That's a free guide that I send out every new moon. So this particular guide is working with the new moon in Cancer and the full moon in Aquarius. So you're definitely welcome to download that, or just actually the way you will receive it is I would send it to your inbox when you sign up to be on the receiving list of that free gift. So I can include a link in the description of this video, and you can just click on that and add yourself to that list if you'd like to receive the free creative guides that I send every new moon. So, in this videos, like I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit more about the moon this week with some specificity in terms of how it's affecting you personally. And then I'm going to take you through my suggestions for how to art journal with the moon on the days from Monday to Friday in your art journal. And then I'm going to take you through the Cancer part of your birth chart. So, looking specifically where that is according to your rising sign. So, get out your birth chart. And if you have it, glued to the front or some page on your art journal, which is what I suggest, that you can always go back to it. You want to make sure that it's in the whole sign system. And I have a video on my YouTube channel that explains how to create your birth chart in the whole sign system. You'll know it's in the whole sign system as well because every astrological house on your chart will have an equal size and shape. So that's what you're looking for because we work with the moon in terms of the ancient astrology. At least that's how I work with it. So if you want to follow along with me, that's what you will need. Enjoy. Hello, my friends. Looking at the moon this week, we're going to start off with that new moon in Cancer on Monday. But as you'll see, the moon, of course, is building in power and strength, and we get to those waxing phases near the end of the week. The moon is moving through the Cancer all the way to the Libra parts of your chart. So it's moving through Cancer, Leo, Virgo, and Libra this week. We're moving towards that Aquarius full moon later on. But right now, we're working with that new moon in Cancer energy, especially this week. On Monday, because that is the new moon, we're focusing in our art journal, setting those new moon intentions. And later in this video, I'm going to take you through exactly which areas of your life that Cancer new moon is focused on, helping you to see how to create the new moon intentions. But again, as I mentioned in the introduction, I also share that same information on my blog and in the Creative Moon Cycle Guide that I mail out to you. The moon on Monday is moving into Leo in the evening, so there is some void, of course, moon time, but I think it's really slight on that day. There's a happy relationship with Neptune and Uranus, and there's an opposing relationship with Pluto. So that new moon is doing a lot of things. Plus, as you'll see in my Creative Moon Guide and in the moon update on my blog, I do talk about what else is happening on that day, which is the lunar nodes are changing signs and they're moving from Scorpio and Taurus to Aries and Libra. So that's a pretty big event because it's going to last for 18 months and it's going to color or, change the lunar energy in the background for the next 18 months. And it's especially going to change and bring about major beginnings and major endings when it comes to those parts of your chart, because that's where the eclipses are going to happen for the next year and a half. So you definitely want to just become familiar with the Aries and Libra houses in your birth chart, and just to see where that energy is being affected. And you can learn more, like I said, on my blog about that as well. On Tuesday, the moon is having new relationships with other planets. It is not having any. I forgot the word not there, as you know. And if you're familiar with me, details are not my strength. And there's always some typos to be found in every video on every week, I am sure. But there's actually no relationships here, and so that means that the moon is a little bit quieter, and because it's a dark moon phase, it's also really bringing that quiet and that stillness. It is in the sign of Leo, though, so it's a good day to reclaim your personal power, which is what we're focusing on in our art journals that day, because we're also working with that healing your broken heart with the archetype of the Great Mother. And one of the things that you want to do as you're moving through the memories of a broken heart is reclaiming your personal power, or stepping back into your personal power, because it tends to be an emotional experience that happens after a broken heart is you're not really feeling usually and typically strongly in your power. So in your art journal, you're just recalling the memory of a time your heart felt broken, then you're drawing the head of a lion and coloring it with colors that to you represents standing in your power. So really working with that imagery of personal power. On Wednesday, the moon is having a tense relationship with Jupiter, which really helps us to receive inspiration. It's also having a tense relationship with Uranus, which kind of wants to rebel against expectations, and an intense relationship with Mercury, which helps your heart and mind work together. So I think this is going to be a good day to be inspired by ideas or thoughts that are rooted in your heart and in your soul. It's kind of like a good day for your mind and your heart to work together. In your art journal, you're creating a vision board that represents the direction you want to move towards in your life. And that we're really focusing on that Jupiter energy that the moon is drawing down. And that's why we're focusing on creating that vision board. On Thursday, the moon is having an intense relationship with Venus, who is currently in the sign of Leo. So Venus really wants to help us see what it's like to thrive in our lives, not just survive. So in your art journal, you can draw, paint, or collage an image of what your life looks like when you're thriving. And a good time that you might want to do that is from 8 or 11 to a.m. when the moon is void, of course, because it's just a really great time to reflect and to just do some inner work. On Friday, the moon is in that waxing crescent phase now. So it's moving from being dark and still and invisible to growing and coming into full power. So it's a good day to imagine the invisible actions your spirit allies are taking to help you reach your goals and manifest your new moon intentions. Because earlier in the week, you planted your new moon intentions. Now, take a little bit of time to focus and think about, okay, what might be happening in the background, even if I'm not seeing anything actually happening, even if I'm not getting seeing results yet towards anything, what do I imagine might be happening in the background to help me reach my goals? Now, the moon, according to your rising sign this week, I really work it specifically with the lunar energy according to where it is in my birth chart. You might want to get that specific, you might not. It's all up to you. We do these things in our own ways. It's what I love about being a witch. You get to do things in your own way and from your own center of power. So if you want to follow along though with me every week, you'll want to draw up your birth chart in the whole sign system because I work with ancient astrology or Hellenistic astrology. So we really look at that whole sign system. I have a video on my YouTube channel that helps you to learn how to do that. But what you're looking for here is you're paying special attention to the first house. And that first house is going to be your rising sign. So whatever zodiac sign you see in that first house, that's your rising sign. Now, each house, and as you'll see here, your birth chart is divided up into 12 equal pieces. And that's how the whole sign system works. It's 12 equal pieces, and each piece is represented by a zodiac sign. And each house is representative of certain areas of your life. So, for instance, your ninth house has to do with international travel, higher education, spirituality, publishing, faith, your religion, your relationship with gods. And your relationship with enthusiasm. Whereas something like the sixth house focuses more on your health, or more specifically, things that drain your health or things that contribute to illness. It also has to do with details and order and work tasks, and also your relationship with any pets is in that house as well. So once you find out what your rising sign is, it's in that first house, then you can see where the sign of Cancer is in your birth chart. Because wherever the sign of Cancer is, that's where the lunar energy is going to be focused on. So it's going to focus on different topics in your life, depending where that lunar energy is drawing itself down to you. So wherever Cancer lands on your birth chart, so for me, as you can see here, this is my birth chart. So the sign of Cancer is in the second house. Yours will be somewheres, obviously, depending on your rising sign. So that zodiac of Cancer is going to flavor one of those houses. And that house is going to show you the areas of your life where you approach things in a Cancer kind of way. And these areas are of your life where you'll tend to be more emotion based. It's also areas of your life where you'll be more nurturing or want to be nurtured, or you'll feel things more deeply, or you'll make decisions from an emotional place in those topics. You'll also be more tied to your home, or you'll want to do things in a way that you find comforting. You'll be more sensitive. You'll be where you want to it's going to be a place where you want to take care of people. Might even be a place where you're a healer. It's also where you'll be more likely to be emotionally reactive, and where your emotions will change based on your external circumstances. So it might take you some time in your life to move from a place of power versus victimhood in this particular area of your life. The area where Cancer is in your birth chart is also going to be areas of your life where you want to experience deeper meaning or a sense of purpose, or where you'll be more influenced by the moon because Cancer is ruled by the moon. It's also where you'll know what you want or where you'll be able to initiate things, but you might have a harder time staying the course in the long term because Cancer is a cardinal sign. So it's really good at initiating things, but not necessarily great at continuing things for the long time. These areas of your life is also where you'll probably like to be kept busy with a purpose. It's also where you'll want to feel safe or where you'll find sanctuary. So, because of that, you'll also want to protect and defend these areas of your life. So, think of that symbol of the crab in those areas of your life. Like, oh, I want to have protection, but I'm also really deeply vulnerable in this area of my life. The planets in this house, so whatever, if you have planets, you might not have planets in that house in your birth chart, but if you do, planets will tend to adopt a kind of low risk strategy. So they won't want to take a lot of risks. They'll want to stay safe. These areas of your life will also be where you'll easily pick up other people's emotions and feelings around these topics. And that was so very relevant for me. It also may be areas in your life where you easily feel stress or anxiety. And the experiences with these area of your lives can be like the moon. So they can wax and wane, and or where you experience a lot of variety or fluctuate a lot in your energies or your results or fluctuate in your emotional states. So when it comes to Aries, that new moon in Cancer is actually in your fourth house. So everything I just said applies to your family, your ancestors, your home, your living situation, the things that grew you. So meaning, your parents, your childhood, that sort of thing. So, with this new moon energy and the fact that we're connecting with that archetype of the Great Mother and healing a memory of a time your heart felt broken, think about those areas of your life and just really allow it to surface from your subconscious, a memory maybe of when your heart was broken in terms of, one of those relationships or one of those topics. If your rising sign is Taurus, the moon is moving through your third and sixth house this week, but that new moon in Cancer energy is in the third house. So you're connecting with the archetype of the Great Mother and healing a memory of a time your heart felt broken when it comes to learning. So maybe your early schooling years, the way you communicate or express yourself, your relationship with your siblings or peers, or your experience with the goddess and nature-based or moon-based rituals, because that's the house of the goddess as well. And if your rising sign is Gemini, the moon is moving through your second to your fifth house, and that new moon energy is happening in your second house. So you're connecting with the archetype of the Great Mother and healing a memory of a time your heart felt broken when it comes to your relationship with money or your income or the way your livelihood, the way you earn your money, or your assets, the things that you own. So think back and of times where your heart felt broken when it comes to these types of topics. That new moon in Cancer, for those with their Cancer as their rising sign, the new moon is obviously going to be in their first house. And the moon for the week is going to move through your first all the way to your fourth house. And you're connecting with the archetype of the Great Mother and healing a memory of a time when your heart felt broken when it comes to your identity, your relationship with your body, your appearance, or your relationship with your spirit and your true essence. So, when you're sitting down to do your new moon intentions, just take a moment to be still and quiet and think about those areas of your life and kind of just invite your subconscious to show you a memory of a time when maybe your heart felt broken in any of those areas. If your rising sign is Leo, the moon is moving through your 12th to your third house, and that new moon energy is in your 12th house. You're connecting with the archetype of the Great Mother and healing a memory of a time when your heart felt broken, but especially a memory that lives maybe deep in your subconscious, or one that brings a lot of shame, or one that includes secrets or something you hide from yourself or others, because that 12th house is really a house of like our subconscious realm, or those things that we keep hidden, or the deep recesses of our shadow selves. So you really want to dive into that area or just send that question. Imagine sending that question out into the deep recesses of your mind of like, oh, what memory do I have of a time that my heart felt broken? It's still living in the shadow realm. If your rising sign is a Virgo, then the moon is moving through your 11th to your second house this week. And that new moon in Cancer is in your 11th house. So the new moon is inviting you to connect with the archetype of the Great Mother and heal a memory of a time your heart felt broken when it comes to friendships or groups or community or even your hopes and wishes. So you would just either choose one of those topics, whichever one feels most relevant, and you would think about a memory where your heart felt broken, or when maybe you experienced a betrayal, or maybe you experienced a loss of some kind, and just sitting with the tender memories of that and invoking the Great Mother archetype to support you to heal whatever wants to be healed at this time in your life around that, or just tend to some of the emotions. If your rising sign is Libra, the moon is moving through the 10th house to your first house this week. So that new moon in Cancer is in your 10th house. So you're connecting with the archetype of the Great Mother and healing a memory of a time your heart felt broken when it comes to your career or your reputation or your ideas of success. If your rising sign is Scorpio, the moon is moving through the 9th to the 12th house. So that new moon in Cancer energy is in your 12th house. Your 9th house. So you're connecting with the archetype of the Great Mother and healing a memory of a time your heart felt broken when it comes to your faith or when it comes to religion or any spiritual practices that you've experienced in your past or your experience with international travel or higher education and or your future success. So you would choose one of those topics, whichever one feels pertinent or relevant to you during this new moon, and then you would sit with allowing some of those memories to surface or a memory of a time your heart felt broken in that area of your life, and then inviting that archetype of the Great Mother to come in and support you in tending to your vulnerable heart. That Sagittarius, if Sagittarius is your rising sign, the moon is moving through your 8th to your 11th house. So that new moon in Cancer is in your 8th house. So you're going to want to connect with the archetype of the Great Mother and heal a memory of a time your heart felt broken when it comes to your psyche or your emotional and mental well-being or any debt you've accumulated, maybe your own, or maybe ancestors, or maybe something from a past life, or your relationship with money that you've shared with someone else, or your relationship with taxes. So you just want to think about which area of your life that feels most relevant right now. Choose one of that area and then dive into some broken heart memories and invite the Great Mother to help you tend to whatever wants tending to at this time. If your rising sign is Capricorn, the moon is moving through your 7th to your 10th house. So that new moon in Cancer is in your 7th house. So connect with the archetype of the Great Mother and heal a memory of a time your heart felt broken when it comes to a close, intimate relationship or your marriage or a really important partnership. So that can be something that you're experiencing currently, or it can be something from your past. You just want to think about somewheres that just needs a little bit of tending, or place your heart needs a little bit of nurturing or emotional care. If your rising sign is Aquarius, the moon is moving through your 6th to your 9th house, and that new moon in Cancer is in your 6th house. So you want to connect with the archetype of the Great Mother and heal a memory of a time your heart felt broken when it comes to your daily work routines, your relationship with a pet, or your health and wellness. If your rising sign is Pisces, that moon is moving through the 5th and the 8th house. So that new moon in Cancer energy is in the 5th house. That's where you'll want to connect with the archetype of the Great Mother and heal a memory of a time your heart felt broken when it comes to your children, your relationship with your children, your hobbies, your relationship with parenting, your sex life, your relationship with pleasure, or your relationship with creativity or a creative project that you've worked on in the past or that you're currently working on. So you choose one of those areas that feel most relevant right now, and then you just think about a time where your heart felt broken. It might be relevant today, it might be something from your past. And then you just invite that archetype of the Great Mother and look what it feels and looks like in your life to tend to those memories or to tend to your heart in a kind and nurturing way. So I hope that helps you work with the new moon energy this week, and we'll see you next week.